Welcome in to week 13 of the college football season. It is the penultimate week of the regular season, which means it is the penultimate edition of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show, at least for the regular season. We're still here for a while. We got a long ways to go, but regular season edition. We have added yet subtracted to the group this week. We have lost Jay DeCoster for the week. He is supposedly busy. Don't know what that means, but at least Matt, when he doesn't show up, he gives excuses. So Matt Merrifield is back. Justin Walsh, I think me and you have been the only ones that have been on every episode this year. So we continue that streak. But Matt, welcome back. You were on a flight last week back from Atlanta from the absolutely terrible event that is the Champions Classic. But sadly, you are not going on a flight to Maui. That's just major disappointment.
Yeah, it is quite disappointing. And Tom Izzo, after the game yesterday, asked which of the media members will be there. And there was a lot of jealousy when certain people raised their hand that they were getting the budget. Or one person, I'm pretty sure, is just taking a vacation for the week while also happening to be in the same city as Michigan State, which, hey, I respect it. And if I can save up enough money at one point to just go be in Maui, I hope to be that person one day. But until then, who cares about Michigan State men's basketball? Michigan State women's basketball is back. They forced 32 turnovers tonight against Detroit Mercy at the Breslin Center, winning 101-45, I think was the final score. I don't really remember. Michigan State's best player plays 6 minutes a game, and her points per 40 minutes is probably a school record, considering she dropped 17 in 7 minutes today. She had 16 points in 8 minutes last Wednesday, the last time I called the game for them. So she is quite elite. Julian Woodard, automatic bucket. Michigan State needs her. The men's team needs her to start shooting. But regardless, we are back. We're ready to make some picks this week. Can't wait to slander J Walsh in a few minutes.
Before we get to you, J Walsh, speaking of women's basketball, I know, J Walsh, you mentioned it pre-show, but big congratulations go out to Gino Auriemma becoming the winningest coach in college basketball history as we record this evening. He's the greatest. He's the greatest ever. There's no debate. I don't think there's any debate at all, and I'm not going to entertain it. So also congrats to Coach CD, his assistant coach. She has been there, since the start. You know, usually assistants go on and become head coach somewhere else. CD has stayed there, for 40 years. This is their 40th year. So absolutely huge accomplishment for the UConn women's basketball team. But Jay Walsh, we'll get back to you. Guess what? You lost another lock last week. So, just kind of walk us through that.
I don't know that I really want to walk us through that. It happens every week. So at this point, I've become kind of numb to it all. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I apparently have just unbelievable jinxing powers. I'm still learning to control my powers and kind of the breadth of my abilities. So I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. At some point, I will determine a way to use these powers for good. But in the meantime, unfortunately, I think the best use I have for them is just to tell you guys to bet against my lock every week, just to try to earn some money for everyone else. So that's pretty much all I can say, unfortunately.
Yeah, Jay Walsh, I suggested to you, as you know, Michigan State Twitter just continually declines each and every day of becoming worse and worse by the day about this football team. I told you, just lock Purdue this week and all our problems will be solved. Spoiler alert, you did not lock Purdue this week. So looks like it's going to be another dogfight in East Lansing on Friday. We're not even going to do a full discussion about the game because I know I am. Matt, I think you are. We're kind of just tired of this team already. It's time.
Yes, but I would like to. I would like to ask, would either of you want to accompany me to the game? Because if you show up, you get to bring 2 guests in for free into Spartan Stadium on Friday night. Or if you go to the Christmas tree lighting event in Lansing on Friday afternoon, you go up to the Michigan State Athletics booth, you get free tickets to this game. So I can't wait to see what kind of crowd we have on a Friday night. It's snowing for the first time this year outside as we record this on a Wednesday night in Michigan. I can't. I am not going to this football game. Spoiler alert. I have better things to do than go inside Spartan Stadium on Friday. So there's that. But keep that in mind. If you have any interest in watching dog shit football, East Lansing's the place to be on Friday night. Fox, this is a hate crime. They must pay for their sins for forcing people to watch this on their Friday night.
Well, Matt, you missed it because we were on the pre-show a little bit before you were, and we actually had a full discussion about this. We came up with a theory that I think, because, like you said, this game is buy 1 ticket, bring 2 friends for free. I think the next one is going to be buy 1, get 10 free for Senior Day against Rutgers. And Nick believes, he thinks it's probably going to be like bring your entire family with you to the game. So we had this full on discussion in the pre-show.
Matt,
I don't think it'll be that bad. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to say, so we did this in the pre-show. We looked at student section tickets for both this week and next week. Do you know the price before fees for next week's game? Student ticket.
$14.
Next week against Rutgers, pre-fee $1. The fees $4.50.
I mean, I expect attendance honestly next week against Rutgers to be slightly better because State might lose this game on Friday, but at least if they do win, hey, they're playing for a bowl bid against a terrible Rutgers team on next Saturday. And like, hey guys, it's the last Saturday of the year. Like, I get those people. Like, it's a Saturday in November. You got to go bear the elements, just tough it out. But like, there's zero reason. I know one person who is leaving work early to come to this game and to be here. It's Allie's father. He's adamant that he goes. He's a season ticket holder. I get it. He paid for the tickets for the season. He had to pay the same price for this game as he did for Ohio State. I tried to tell him, like, your fandom does not ride on this game. I promise you can watch it from your house, literally anywhere, but you don't have to go. But hey, I guess I respect it. I wish I was that big of a fanatic. I guess I will never reach that level.
Shout out Mr. Cohen. I don't know if we use this term anymore, but he is very much a deep water Michigan State fan. Yeah, we're gonna keep chopping, guys. Keep chopping. We're moving on from Michigan State because I mean it's such a disappointment. But what's not a disappointment is the Week 13 edition of the J Walsh rankings. So let's get into it.
All right, we will, as Nick said, we will get into it this week. Not a whole lot of movement, just a couple slides down, but no new teams to the rankings this week, which was interesting. So coming in at number 15, we have Ole Miss, kind of sticking where they were last week. Number 14, we have Army. Number 13, we have Miami. Number 12, we have Alabama. 11, we have Tennessee sliding down after that loss to Georgia last week. Number 10, we have BYU sliding down after that disgusting loss to Kansas that may or may not have been my lock of the week last week. But anyway, we're moving on. Number 9, we have SMU. 8, we have our top group of 5 team, Boise State, hailing from the Mountain West Conference. Number 7, we have Penn State. Number 6, Georgia. Number 5, Texas. Number 4, Notre Dame. Number 3, Indiana. Number 2, Ohio State. And number 1, again, Oregon. So going into the matchups, we have number 8, Georgia versus number 9, Penn State, with the winner playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl. We have number 5, Ohio State, playing number 12, Alabama, with the winner of that game playing SMU in the Peach Bowl. We have number 6 Indiana versus number 11 Tennessee, with the winner playing Texas in the Sugar Bowl. And then we have number 7 Notre Dame versus number 10 BYU, with the winner playing Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Our first 4 out in order are Miami, Army, Ole Miss, and then Colorado once again in that number 16 spot. Once again, same as last week. So without further ado, I will open up the floor to you guys to get your opinions on the rankings.
Can I file a motion to keep the Big 12 out of this playoff? Please. Can we all come to an agreement that this conference is ass?
I think there's a very real chance that it happens. So I think you may get your wish.
My parlay reflects that this weekend. So just keep that in mind. No spoilers, but yes, I agree. I think the Big 12 sucks. If a Big 12 team deserves to get in, it's Sam Leavitt and the Arizona State Sun Devils after Desmond Howard slandered them on Saturday morning on game day. Why is this game on the pick? They're 7.5-point underdogs. First off, Desmond, it's a 7.5-point spread. There are much bigger spreads. You had Arkansas and Texas on that pick 'em in the same day. Everybody knew Texas was winning that football game. So, anyways, Big 12 stinks. Other than that, I guess I don't have an issue with them still being at 10. Seeing BYU get a bye is hilarious to me. I know you're not affected by the propaganda that ESPN puts out on Tuesday nights because you have SMU getting a bye, whereas they don't even have them in the playoff at this moment in time. They need to keep winning football games, which, hey, everybody in this picture still does. But otherwise, I guess I don't have an issue. My one great Miami should be in over BYU. Like, if we're picking 12 best teams, that's the only change I make. I don't think Indiana's a playoff team. If they are, they're a fringe playoff team. And I guess we'll find out this weekend. And I love the conspiracy theorists trying to tell me that they need to bench Curtis Rourke so that way they can get blown out, and there's a reason for it. Because, hey, I don't hate the player, hate the game, I guess. But we'll talk more in depth about Indiana, Ohio State. But I think they're the only team on here that I think might be, if we're going to break out the fraud con scale in the next week or so, they're the biggest frauds of the 12 you have in. And BYU, I guess, too. But we know they're bad. We're just waiting for them to lose again.
And BYU may lose again this weekend, honestly. No spoilers, maybe a part of the parlay. But the only thing I have to say with the whole the Big 12 should not make the playoff. The problem is I don't know which conference replaces them, because it seems like everybody that's potentially could, like it's basically looking at Army and Tulane for the American. I don't see that unless like the Big 12 completely collapses these next 2 weeks and you have like 2 8-4 teams in the Big 12 title. I don't think either Army or Tulane are jumping a Big 12 champion, especially if it's Colorado. There's no chance whatsoever that Colorado is not making the playoff if they win the Big 12.
We would need the troops to come through in a big way at Yankee Stadium on Saturday night. Don't think it's going to happen. I don't know if we're talking about it. I haven't looked close enough at the show sheet quite yet, but here's a better idea. How about we eliminate automatic qualifiers? Why? I've said this from the beginning, if we're not going to let all the conferences in, all the conference champions in, we should let none of them in, or guarantee none of them in, I should say. Like, picking and choosing which conferences are good and aren't is stupid, and then mandating that, yes, 5 conference champions are getting in puts you in a spot where you're not putting the best 12 teams in. So either let all the conference champions in and then fight them out amongst yourselves, and at that point they'd have to expand the playoff to 16 or even 24. But I just hate that this playoff, I know it's ESPN, just they want to make sure they have the teams they want in, but man, I hate it. I hate handing out a bid to a team that just should not be there. And even truthfully, Army or Tulane shouldn't get in if they find a way to backdoor in. They're neither one of them. None of the 3 teams, them or whoever wins the Big 12, should be in this 12-team playoff. But this is what we get, I guess. And hopefully it gets fixed. It won't, but
no, it won't, Matt. We'll never see it fixed. But I mean, I agree. Like the whole conference, I think at least the whole if you win your conference, and you're one of the top 4 ranked conference champions, you get a bye. I think that's stupid. Because it just doesn't, like, if we look at it right now, the number 1, the number 2 team in the nation, both in the J Walsh rankings and the CFP rankings, it's Oregon and Ohio State. With the way they have it, with, the top 4 seeds are byes and they're conference champions, you're going to have Oregon, Ohio State as a semifinal game, when realistically that should be a national championship game because it's 1 versus 2. I think it's stupid that we're doing this, because no matter what, most likely that number 2 team in the nation, whether, it's most likely going to be either Oregon or Ohio State, especially if they both get to Indianapolis. I don't see either of them dropping a ton. Whoever loses that game, if it's Ohio State, there may be some movement there. But no matter what, it seems like they're on a collision course again to play in the semifinals, which is just absolutely stupid. They should be a national championship type thing.
Imagine we get to Selection Sunday in college basketball in March, and we had a situation where the committee was trying to decide whether the SoCon or the WAC got a team in the tournament. Now, I understand we're fighting over whether it's a Power 5 conference or a mid-major, or a group of 5, I should say, but still, like, there's no overlap between these teams. So there's no way to actually determine which is better. So how about we either just take out the randomness of it and just, we're not going to put either of you in, or like, you can't guarantee a spot to teams when there's not enough overlap in college football to know who is actually better. At least college basketball does have enough of it. But still, so that's stupid. And the 4-team buys to get the top 4 teams getting a buy, also dumb. And I know we've talked about it before, how conference championship games are stupid now. Like they don't serve a purpose, because teams have more to lose than they do have to gain from it, which is a whole completely different conversation. I know teams are starting to have it. Like Lane Kiffin brought it up. But I am just pessimistic. I want J Walsh's final thoughts, and then we can get back to the gambling, because that's what makes me happy in the sport, even though I suck at it.
So my final thoughts, and talking about the faults of the 12-team playoff. I was against the 12-team playoff when it was first brought up. I have long said, and obviously this idea has now become outdated because of conference realignment and the death of the Pac-12. I have said for years that my ideal playoff was an 8-team playoff with the 5 Power 5 conference champions, 1 group of 5 team, and then 2 at-large bids. Because that, A, makes the conference championships mean something, because it means basically, unless you're one of the best teams in the country, you don't win your conference championship, you're not making the playoff. So it makes conference championships mean something. It gives an opportunity to a group of 5 team that would not ordinarily be there in the 4-team playoff. And it still allows for teams like this situation with Ohio State, Oregon. It allows the loser of that game to still get into the playoff and have a shot at a national title, because they are one of the best teams in the country. So that was always kind of my ideal expanded playoff. I think 12 was too much. I think the system, like you guys said, I don't like the top 4 seeds get buys system. I really don't. So that's kind of my final thoughts on the structure of the playoff. Going back to what you said earlier, Matt, the main reason I have BYU over Miami, and it's kind of iffy now, especially now that Kansas State did lose last week, but that Kansas State win looms heavy for BYU, because that's a better win than anything Miami has on its schedule as of right now. So 1-loss teams, one has a much better win than the other. I'm going to go with the better win. So that is why they were ranked ahead. I like I've said all along, I get why people would have Miami higher, but in terms of the J Walsh rankings, the criteria is, what have you done for me this season? What have you shown on the field? And better wins lead to higher rankings. But anyway, let's get to the gambling.
I completely agree. Let's get to the gambling. The first game we have on the sheet this week is two teams that are currently in the playoffs. One of them, who knows, if you listen to conspiracy theorists, they should be out even if they win this game. It is Indiana, the undefeated Hoosiers, traveling to the Horseshoe to take on Ohio State in big noon kickoff. Ohio State a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under, 51.5. J Walsh, we will start with you on this one. Ohio State comes into this game off a win at Wrigley last week against Northwestern, but they lose a starting offensive tackle, Seth McLaughlin, or something similar to that, I believe. He is done for the season. For an offensive line that has not been the greatest at points this year, this could play a huge factor into how the rest of Ohio State season plays out.
It absolutely can. I mean, Ohio State has really struggled with injuries on the offensive line all year. That's really been kind of their main downfall and why they really haven't. I mean, they've blown some teams out, but they really haven't played to the level that everyone kind of knows that they're capable of playing. And a lot of that is because of those offensive line injuries. When it comes to this game, and I talked about it a bit on the pre-show, but I really hope that Indiana keeps this game close or wins. I really hope they do, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous the amount of just absolute SEC sucking up that all of the major analysts and basically all of college football Twitter has been doing, saying that, oh, if Indiana loses this game and a one-loss Indiana should not make it into the playoff over a 4-loss Texas A&M. Like, it's just getting ridiculous at this point. Every argument that you can use to discredit Indiana, you can also use to discredit Texas. So I don't really understand why people are coming at Indiana like that, aside from the fact that it's Indiana. Like I said, I really hope they keep this close. Unfortunately, I really don't see a scenario where they do. I've seen this scenario play out a number of times where there's a team that kind of comes out of nowhere in the Big Ten, playing very well, kind of gets thrust into that national title picture. They travel to Columbus and they get their doors blown off. I mean, it happened to MSU a couple of years ago, and it was a very not fun game to watch. And as somebody who had to write a recap article of that game immediately after, it was very not fun to summarize as well. But that's beside the point. I just don't really see a scenario where Indiana keeps this one close. I think I really like Ohio State minus the 13.5 here. I would go with the over, because both of these teams are obviously very capable of scoring points. So I think the over is a pretty decent play here, but I think Ohio State separates themselves. I think they win this by at least 2 touchdowns.
Matt, we'll go to you next. I mean, this is by far the toughest challenge Indiana's had this year. We mentioned their toughest road test was probably Michigan State. Their toughest test in general, probably the Michigan game a few weeks ago, and Michigan's not good. So does any of that tell you anything about this game, or do you think this is just going to be an absolute disaster for Kurt Cignetti and his Hoosiers?
Well, I would like to point out, J Walsh kind of mentioned the Michigan State game from 2021, and the parallels are kind of funny on how similar they are. Other than Indiana's undefeated, Michigan State had 1 loss at this point, but who knows? Indiana could, God, if they lose to Purdue next week, that would be LOL. But other than that, they're coming in top 10 team. They have not played anybody. Like you said, Michigan or Michigan State are their best 2 wins they have on the season. I like Ohio State here. 13.5 point favorites. I'll take I'll lay the 13.5. No problem. Indiana's offense looked really bad against the best defense they've played all year. And I understand Michigan still has a really, really good defensive unit. But Ohio State's is better and has played better this year. And that's honestly been Ohio State's more consistent side of the football. I think the under might be the play in this game, simply because if Indiana can't score, Ohio State's not going to score enough in this game to cover it by themselves. I could see this being like a 35-10 final, 35-7. Like, just OSU is going to start winning. And I understand losing their center does suck. But unfortunately, for Indiana, this is not the situation they want to be in. Now, should they still follow the playoff? I don't know. I still think they might be one of the 12 best teams in the country simply because this country kind of stinks this year in college football. And if it's between them and a Texas A&M team that we know can't, I don't know. At that point, just drink it to 10. That's my solution. So, but other than that, give me the Buckeyes big on Saturday on Big Noon.
As much of a pro Big Ten show we are, if Indiana loses this game, I think they most likely don't make the playoff just because they'll put in a 2-loss, Tennessee or Texas A&M, like Matt just mentioned, because Indiana just doesn't have that name, which is why I'm hoping they at least keep it close and at least cover. I don't think they're going into the horseshoe and winning. I just don't see that happening. I think Ohio State's going to boat race them. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. And then all the SEC people on the internet, in the media, will say, see, I told you so. And then we're just going to be in this cycle for the next, it would be 2 weeks, I think, until the final playoff is announced. And that's just going to be a disgusting cycle for narratives. Like, you are going to get the worst out of the worst. And I'm not looking forward to it, but Ohio State, I think, quite easily wins this one. So we'll move on to the other game we have on the sheet. And as Matt alluded to it a little bit earlier, we are going to be talking about the troops, and they do kind of need to come up big here for their playoff chances, as it is the 100th anniversary of the Four Horsemen, as Notre Dame takes on Army from Yankee Stadium. Brilliant football venue. Great job, guys. Here we go. Matt, we'll start with you. We'll just come out point blank. Do the troops have any chance whatsoever in this one, given what Notre Dame did to Navy like 3 weeks ago?
Well, I just had to do a fire drill to confirm that Notre Dame was not bringing back their pinstripes from a few years ago when they played Syracuse at Yankee Stadium. Good news, they're not. Their uniforms are actually kind of sweet this year. I don't know what Army is wearing. I know what they're wearing for the Army-Navy game. Army will win that football game based on uniforms alone. But this week, Army's got to do it for America. And not because we necessarily want them in the playoff, but because we don't want the Big 12 in the playoff. So they need to do America its justice and take care of business. Now, if Notre Dame loses, they're out of the playoff, and I kind of want Notre Dame in because I do like Marcus Freeman's squad. And although some people complained that they're still in, even though they lost to Northern Illinois, the way they're beating teams right now, you can't keep Notre Dame out. And I understand they lost a game they shouldn't have. And I think my biggest complaint about college football and the way the playoff handles things is relevancy and recency bias in terms of losses. A loss in November is not the same as a loss in September. And whether or not that should be that way or not, I don't know. But the way they're winning, Notre Dame is kicking ass and taking names right now. And I know they haven't played the best opponents, but they're doing what they need to do against the bad teams. And we know when they show up against the good teams, yes, do they win the big games? No, but they don't get embarrassed. Other than the Alabama game almost 15 years ago now. And one of the playoff games they got against Clemson, they got beat pretty bad, but that was a national championship level Clemson team. I don't have an issue with Notre Dame being in the playoff. And I guess I'll take Army to cover because I do think Army is better than Navy significantly. But Notre Dame's going to win this football game. But I think I would take Army to cover the 14, though.
J Walsh, we'll go to you next on this one. Obviously, I mean, it's a neutral site, but I feel like that doesn't really matter. I mean, that Notre Dame Navy game was also a neutral site. So just kind of your overall thoughts on this one.
This one has kind of a very similar feel to the Indiana-Ohio State game for me in that I really want Army to keep this game close. I would love to see them win this game. I just don't think that there's any shot that they do. I mean, like Matt said, I do think this Army team is a lot better than Navy. So I don't know that it'll necessarily be quite that lopsided, but it's the same thing I said about that game going in. This is the first time Army is going to face this level of talent. And I mean, while Army was rolling early, they've kind of the last couple games, they've really haven't looked super impressive. Had a not super impressive win against, I think it was North Texas in their last game. Notre Dame, since that loss to Northern Illinois, which obviously is a terrible loss, but second game of the year in September, you can potentially chalk that up as a fluke. Since that game, they have been rolling people. They pass every test in terms of eye test, just about everything in terms of being one of the best teams in the country. And I think they roll through this game. I really do. I would take Notre Dame to cover this 14.5. In terms of the over-under, I think once again, I think the over is a decent play here simply because I think this could very easily be a game that Notre Dame wins 38-14 or something like that, which would get us a cover. So I would love to see Army win this game, but I just don't see a way that they can do it because Notre Dame is playing like one of the best teams in the country right now.
And I'll close out. Before the Navy game, the Navy Notre Dame game, I said with the way that at the time both service academies were playing, I thought one of them could get Notre Dame. It was very much not Navy. I think I said at that point, if I had to lean towards one, I think it's Army. I think they're the much better team. Do I think there's a slight chance it could happen? Yes. Do I think it's actually going to happen? No, but I think they can keep it within the number. I think that's big enough where Army can really slow down this game. And if they can limit possessions for Notre Dame, I think they can cover this game. It's going to be right on that borderline since it's at 14.5. I mean, Notre Dame can win by 14, and that's still an Army cover. Give me the troops. I'm probably going to regret it, and they're going to lose by 30, but give me the troops to cover here. And I hope they win because I know Matt keeps saying, like, we hope they're not in the playoffs. I do hope the troops are in the playoffs. Let's get the troops in the playoffs. I don't think they'll do anything past that, but we want the troops in the playoffs because it would be interesting, and they'd probably play like Ohio State or Oregon, and that would just be – it would probably be disgusting to watch because it would be quite high scoring for one side, and that's about it. But give me your troops at least to cover here, and I'm going to hope for the best. To my knowledge, I don't think Army has any special uniforms this weekend. So I think it's just basic white with gold helmet for them this weekend, which is a little disappointing, but they're bringing the heat for the Army-Navy game, which they have for like the last 5 years straight. And it is very much going to help them win that game in a few weeks' time. J Walsh, do you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if on the off chance Army does pull off the big-time upset here, they are currently in position to be the biggest risers of any team in the J Walsh college football rankings this year, considering they're sitting at the number 14 spot right now simply because they haven't played anybody. If they add a top 10 win onto their schedule while being one of the last undefeated teams in the country, they will shoot up the rankings. So I just want everyone to be prepared that if they do win this game, you will see Army rise dramatically in the rankings.
Yeah, because, I mean, with the way we expect things to go with Indiana, that would leave 2 unbeaten teams in America. If of course, Army pull it off, and that would be themselves and Oregon. I would not be surprised at all, especially given what kind of win Notre Dame would be for that resume, to see quite a jump in all the rankings. Maybe not the college football playoff one because they hate the troops. Let's be honest, they do. Ward Manuel, he hates the troops. He hates a lot of people. He doesn't hate Central Michigan. Shout out Jim McElwain announces his retirement today. Surely that can't mean anything because he's just coincidentally retiring right before a huge, I believe the investigation is like Michigan's supposed to answer like by the end of the year. So really odd timing there. So with that being said, what?
Or is he coaching next week, or is he like effective immediately? He's just out after beating Western.
I believe
last
he
night.
is coaching next week.
Okay, I was about to say, I'm like, that's hilarious. Like, all right, guys, wait for the Woj bomb to drop in the morning. But all right, well, shout out Jim and his shark, and real one to remember. And even though it was proven that it wasn't him, but anyways, let's make our picks for the week. I can't wait.
In our hearts, Matt.
Can I guess, Nick, what your lock of the week is?
No, because you already know it.
I know I don't.
Yes, you do.
I don't remember what your lock is. I am being 100% serious. If you send it to
me. Look at the slate of games this week, and I promise you will.
Oh, I know. I didn't realize. I've completely missed it until I saw it just now. And UConn is playing Syracuse, so I know damn well it's UConn. It's not.
I don't know, Matt. We got to get through the rankings for our locks and parlays first, because these standings have not been updated in a few weeks. Like this is the first time like I actually remembered to do it before our show in like 3 weeks. Let's take a look at them. I miraculously, not at all, still sit at the top. I'm 36-27 on the season. Currently the only one above 500. Great job, guys. Matt Merrifield, you are 36-37. Our dearly departed, not dead, but just not here, Jay DeCoster, is 31-36. And J Walsh, you are right there at the bottom, 28-37. I texted Matt this yesterday. I believe if results go our way, J Walsh, you can technically be relegated to the Gambling Committee Championship with poor results this weekend. Of course, the Gambling Committee Championship, very much fake. I can also, with results, clinch a spot in the fictitious Gambling Champions League this week. Again, not a real thing, but just wanted to throw some soccer in there. So we're going to keep it going like we have the past few weeks. Jay Walsh, we're starting with you. We're going to go from the bottom to the top. And I can't wait to hear what your lock is this week because it's not going to go on my parlay, but I'm immediately fading it.
It's been a rough season. It's been a rough year. I'm not going to lie. Really hoping we can get things turned around. Starting this week, I hesitantly, I feel decent about the picks this week, so we will get into them without further ado. First pick, we have Iowa -6.5 at Maryland. Honestly, the biggest reason for this pick is Maryland is a dead football team right now. They've lost 3 in a row. They haven't really been super competitive in, I don't believe, any of them. They are kind of dead in the water right now. And Iowa, while also not great, has kind of put together a decent season. I like Iowa in this spot. I think it's very possible they win this game by a touchdown, so I'm going with the Hawkeyes. My next pick, I am going with SMU -9.5 at Virginia. Again, Virginia is not a great football team, and SMU has quietly been playing very, very well. I mean, not so quietly in terms of the J Walsh rankings, as I have them in one of my buys, but I know the College Football Playoff Committee is very, very much out on SMU. So I definitely think that they can get it done this week against a very mediocre Virginia team. Next pick, and this is my lock of the week, and I really hope I am not damning them, but I am going with Liberty -1.5 at home against Western Kentucky. I like this pick. which means it's probably not going to hit. I'm probably confirming the Hilltoppers for a W here, but I like Liberty in this game. Both of these teams Liberty has kind of had a disappointing season in the fact that everyone kind of just expects them to run through Conference USA every year. So the fact that they've had a couple losses on their schedule is pretty disappointing. So, but they're still a decent football team, and I still think that they can get the job done against Western Kentucky at home. So I am rolling with the Flames here as my lock of the week. And I know Matt is probably actively placing a money line bet on the Hilltoppers as we speak, but sticking with the Flames. Anyway, next pick. We are going with Arizona at TCU. We are going with the under in this one, 59.5. I've placed a couple overs on TCU games this year, and they've hit. Arizona really is not very good. I mean, they've got one of the best receivers in the country in Tedero McMillan, and obviously they were Matt's kind of sleeper pick for the Big 12 going into this year, and that hasn't quite worked out. So they're not a very good team. I think this game could easily be, like Matt said, I think this game could easily be one that ends up kind of in the 35-10 range, something like that, maybe a little bit closer, because I don't really think either of these teams are very good, but I don't think that this one gets up to 60 points total. So I like the under there. And then my final pick, I'm going against my creed throughout the year. I've gone with Texas State overs throughout the season, multiple times. They've worked sometimes, they haven't worked others. We're mixing it up. I'm going with Texas State, Georgia State under 58.5. And part of the reason, aside from the fact that I just need to change something, is the fact that Texas State has kind of quietly been playing pretty decent defense lately. Combined with the fact that Georgia State just isn't very good, especially on offense. They really are not a good team. So I like this one to stay under 58.5. So those are my 5 picks. Really hoping we can have a even semi-decent week this week. That would be a massive improvement. So yeah, those are the picks.
All right. I will just go through JDC's picks quite quickly here, as he's not here to defend his picks or give explanations. So he has Arizona State -3 against BYU at home. Ohio State minus the 13.5 against Indiana. He has Missouri -7.5. I don't know why we're taking Missouri, but hey, whatever. Don't know why they're still ranked either. Whatever. Fresno State -2.5 and Cal -13.5 in the big game against Stanford. That battle for the axe. What a game. Matt, we'll go to you. What is your parlay for the week?
Well, I would first like to just say that J Walsh, in your lock of the week, are you familiar with what either team did last week? Because both Western Kentucky and Liberty have some pretty embarrassing results from last week. Because Liberty got Don Brown fired despite going to overtime with UMass. And then obviously Western Kentucky laid the world's fattest egg against the Bulldogs from Louisiana Tech. But I all props to you for betting on Conference USA football. If that's the place we got to go to hit some bets, I applaud you, even though I'm now below 500 for the first time since week 2. So,
hey, I got to find something that works for me. Come on.
I'm here. I support you. I'm just glad none of my picks are on your board as well. So I hope you find support and wins elsewhere. But anyways, my first bet of the day, we already talked about it. Give me Ohio State -13 against the Hoosiers. Ohio State's going to win by 2 scores at least, probably a third. I mean, they have to win by a third, but they're going to win. They're going to win by, I think, 20 plus. Won't be much of a game. The under, I think, is also in play here. But yeah, give me the Buckeyes -13 on Big Noon. Next up, I don't feel good about taking this game, but it needs to be taken. Give me Tennessee -41.5 against UTEP. UTEP's dog shit. They're absolutely terrible. The Miners are not good. Tennessee loves these games. Josh Heupel is a buy-game merchant in the best way possible. 41.5, nowhere near enough. This is a Tennessee team that blew out They blew out Kent State, who's the worst team in football, as we all know. Lost again on Maction last night. They blew out NC State on a neutral site, who's terrible. They blew out Chattanooga. When Tennessee plays bad teams, Tennessee looks like they still have Peyton Manning on the field. And they're the reason I fell in love with Nico I, even though he did not have a very good year this year. Give me the Vols minus 41.5. If I'm not mistaken, that is also my lock of the week because Tennessee's going to score 50 without blinking. They might not complete a pass, and they still might put up 50 points in this game. Moving over to the Big 12, where my narratives continue to be pushed. Give me Kansas +3 against Colorado. In some places, it's 3.5. Love it. Absolutely love it. Get as many points on this game as you can. If Vegas is going to give you points, you take the points. Colorado ain't winning this football game. Kansas is probably right now, the way they're playing over the last couple of weeks, they're the best team in the Big 12 because they're the hot team right now. That's how this conference works. For like 2 or 3 weeks, one team plays really good, and then somebody comes in and starts playing well, and the conference sucks. Jalen Daniels is playing at the level he should be playing at. Give me Kansas +3, taking down the Buffaloes. I need it to happen. I want it to happen. It will happen. Down go the Buffaloes. Where's this game being played at again? Is this at Arrowhead?
Yeah.
Love it. Even more. It's great. Voodoo magic in favor of the Jayhawks, just like it would happen against Iowa State a couple weeks ago. Staying in the Big 12, Arizona State. We're following Mike Merrifield's rule. He might be on the show next Tuesday. More on that to come. We'll confirm his appearance, but potentially Mike Merrifield sighting on the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. But unranked team at home against a ranked BYU squad. Give me Arizona State -3. They run the football well. They're playing well. They're going to ride this one. They're going to win this football game, and I believe they're still in play for a Big 12 title spot, and this win's going to go a long way towards that. And then to close it out, Boise State -22.5 at Wyoming. Jay Johnson and that Wyoming offense, terrible. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Wyoming's run defense, but it is quite awful. They give up over 200 yards on the ground a game. Aston Jean team might break Barry Sanders' rushing record on Saturday night at 7 o'clock. So give me Boise. I almost picked this as my lock of the week, but I think Tennessee is too good to pass up, even laying 41.5. I will lay 6 touchdowns when it comes to Tennessee playing a bye game. But Boise State, I also like a lot, 22.5. Even though they're on the road, they're going to continue to roll. Aston Jean teams have 250 yards at halftime. So give me the Broncos. So give me Ohio State -13, Tennessee -41.5 as the lock, Kansas +3, Arizona State -3, and Boise State -22.5.
J Walsh, are we not going to get a lecture about calling a number because the line's over 40? I had to hear it last week with Alabama.
Ordinarily, I do agree with that sentiment, but I do agree with Matt that Tennessee tends to run it up on bad teams. They have done it several times in the past. They've done it several times this year. So if there is a 40-point line to bet, it is this one. I still think that if you're putting a 40-point line as your lock of the week, you need to call the number, but I think it's more responsible than most 40-line bets.
I would like it on the record that I am 2-0 this year when taking teams by 40 points or more. I hit with Ole Miss against, I don't even know, they were favored by 41 against somebody, and then I took Tennessee -48 versus Kent State, and it hit at halftime. And you laughed. I was in this room, you were on that damn couch, and you laughed at me, and it hit. So that's all I'm going to say.
That. And I remember looking at that game in the second quarter, and it was like 49-0. And I thought to myself, the first thought I had when I looked at that score was, oh my fucking God, Matt's going to rub this in.
You're damn right. Tennessee in bye games, best team since the 96 Bowls. Love it. Rocky Top, baby. Rocky Top.
All right. I guess that leaves the floor to me. This sheet this week, very similar. I've heard most of my picks mentioned already, so we'll make it a little quicker. SMU -9.5 at Virginia. I believe they can technically clinch a spot in the ACC title this week. Not 100% sure about that. I believe they go to Cal next week. Something stupid like that. I don't know. Give me SMU in that one.
Known major ACC rivalry, SMU versus Cal. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there.
No, yeah, you're completely right. I will always remember those SMU Cal battles late at night in the ACC of my yesteryears. We'll move on to the Big 12. I am following Mike Merrifield's rule here. Arizona State -3.5 against BYU. BYU, I think that's a team that got broken last week, and I don't expect to see them anytime soon get back to where they were. Arizona State also very hot right now. Matt said Colorado's the best team in the Big 12. Arizona State's the best team in the Big 12. Sam Leavitt, very good. He is the quarterback that probably should have stayed in East Lansing, but he had problems with Jonathan Smith. So good, you do you, Sam. Cam Scatterboom, I mean, he came back from injury and still looks outstanding. Kenny Dillingham, their coach, I mean, he is a young up-and-coming coach. He came from, I believe he was part of Dan Lanning's staff at a point at Oregon before he left for Arizona State. Give me the Sun Devils in this one. Boise State -22.5 at Wyoming. I can't bet for a Jay Johnson coach team. Just give me Boise State here. We're headed to the Plains. Give me Texas A&M -2.5 versus Auburn. I don't know why the line's this small. I know me and J Walsh talked about the Jordan Hare voodoo that is very real. Maybe this is the game it shows up. And who knows? I think that's a very small line for what it probably should be. Give me the Aggies in that one, although this may be a look-ahead situation for a very big game next week for them, a game that is 12 years in the making, something like that. And then we come to the final pick. First off, this is the lock. We've changed it a little bit, though. Secondly, thank you to the USPS for somewhat ruining this segment. I had something coming in for this specific pick. It has been sitting in the Pontiac, Michigan distribution center for the past 2 days. So kindly figure your shit out, USPS. It would be nice to get my packages on time. Okay, we're going to take a little time travel back. March 12th, 2009. A 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old child sat down to watch a basketball game that night. It was a Big East tournament game. What a game it was. I believe it was the late tip-off of the night, so it was 9:30, well past that 7-year-old's bedtime. But that 7-year-old snuck into the basement of the house and watched that game. And that game featured two powerhouse teams at the time. It was a team from Storrs, Connecticut, the University of Connecticut, that is, and a team from hell, and that is Syracuse University. That game ended up tied after regulation. And then after the first overtime, it was still tied, and then second, and then third, and then fourth. And then we get to the fifth, and we're then into the sixth, and it's well past midnight. This 7-year-old child has school at like 8 a.m. in the morning, yet is still watching this game and watches as his UConn Huskies lose to the Syracuse Orange, 127-117 in the sixth overtime. That began a long road of this small 7-year-old child that is now talking in front of you of the hatred for a university in northern New York. We take a look at a different date that really solidified it. That date, of course, it is September 18th, 2011. That is the day Syracuse and Pitt decided to stab the Big East and just kill it, leading the University of Connecticut to just wander into whatever the American was for the better part of a decade and just absolutely languish there and fall apart into the depths of hell, basically. Yet, as Syracuse goes and chases the almighty dollar, they still fall apart, and they are where they are now. We get to today. Well, actually, we get to Saturday when the UConn Huskies travel back up to the gates of hell that is the JMA Wireless Dome. They are a 10.5-point underdog. There's no way I'm not taking anything but UConn money line here. But for the sake of the parlay, I'm giving the parlay the plus 10.5 because I want the parlay to have a chance. But for my personal parlay, I'm taking nothing but UConn money line against these just absolute traitors in Syracuse. They live in a terrible city. The only good thing to ever come out of that city was a Prince concert that they put on vinyl, maybe the best concert of all time, a great rendition, an 18-minute version of Purple Rain. Oh my gosh, so great. But I hope that whatever you want to call it, the JMA Wireless Dome, the Carrier Dome, the dome that didn't have air conditioning until the most recent renovation like 2 years ago, I hope that place falls to the ground after a UConn Huskies victory on Saturday. And I hope it's an absolutely dominating victory. I hope whatever that coach's name, I hope he doesn't have to shower for a month after this one. He's just so disgusted with how his team just collapses this weekend in front of the mighty UConn Huskies. Jim Mora's fighting UConn Huskies. I hope they just obliterate the doors off of Syracuse this weekend. I mean, I still don't eat oranges because of Syracuse. I eat clementines. I don't eat oranges because oranges remind me of that god-awful university. I hope UConn brings justice this weekend. And I know it's going to happen because this is the best UConn football team I've seen since the year that they made it to the Fiesta Bowl when they were 8-4. And even then, they weren't good. Give me the Huskies, roll skis, UConn. UConn. Give me the money line.
I would like to ask, you mentioned the 6 overtime game in 2009. How did that season end for UConn basketball, if you don't mind me asking?
It ended better than Syracuse. They made a Final Four. Can tell you that. And guess what? Since that 6 overtime game, let's see, 2011, 2023, 2024. That is 3 national championships that the UConn Huskies have won. Syracuse University. I believe. Yeah, 4. I'm sorry. I forgot about Kevin Ollie's 2014. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kevin Ollie. Because I was getting to my next point of since that 6 overtime game, I believe Syracuse has made, that's right, 1 Final Four, and they got blown out in 2016. Can't say much else.
I mean, if you don't get fired up enough to run through a brick wall after listening to that rant right there, I don't know who you are. I mean, you can't have a heart. You can't enjoy sports. That was just something absolutely beautiful, Mr. Burt. I would put that on par with, maybe not quite on par, but certainly in the discussion of like a Mike Valeni Notre Dame kind of type rant. I mean, that was just very, very well executed.
I would like to point out that also with my question about who they lost to that season in 2009, that'll be the same team UConn will have just lost to when we record on Tuesday night, when we meet again for this show next week on the sunny beaches of Hawaii.
I should also mention, because I honestly don't remember half the things I just said, honestly. If I didn't mention it, I 100% would rather this game be on the hardwood than on that fake turf at the JMA Wireless Dome. Like, I would give up like everything that's going to happen on Tuesday when the roll skis just absolutely blow the doors off the Michigan State Spartans and make Tom Izzo just reconsider everything that he's done these past 30 years. Yes, I would give up everything with that to play Syracuse on the hardwood. It doesn't have to be this weekend. Could be at any point this season. I very much would rather that be the case. But sometimes you just got to settle for the football. And I'm completely fine with that. Still, give me the skis. Roll skis.
I just can't wait to watch Cohen Carr put Alex Caravan on a poster on the beaches of Hawaii and then have it printed. And that'll be my gift to Nick for Christmas this year to hang up on his wall in his new office at work.
Well, I mean, it's a thoughtful gift, at least. I mean, can't say much else.
But otherwise, I respect the narrative being pushed here. I am also not a Syracuse Orange fan, but I don't know if I would consider myself a UConn supporter like you are, sir. But I support the narrative. Does anybody have anything else to share on this Wednesday night?
I think just out of pure empathy for Fran Brown's wife, I would say I really hope that what Nick Burt just described doesn't come to pass and he is able to shower for the next month, because God help that poor woman if that is the case. But that's pretty much all I have to add there.
I hope UConn torches Syracuse like Bo Nix torched the Falcons last Sunday, or how Anthony Richardson is going to torch the Lions this Sunday. Funny how the turntables, baby. I'm all in on Anthony Richardson for this week and this week only.
Yeah,
damn Lions.
I guess we'll have to talk about it next show. We'll have to open up discussing the Lions Colts game and everything that happens in that game.
My opening monologue on Sunday morning for the Green and White Report will change lives. That's all I'm going to say. I need 60 minutes from Anthony Richardson one time, but that's besides the point, and that is not needed to be shared on these airwaves. But anywho.
Well, all I know is that we need to open up next week's show just having a quick recap of everything that occurs, all of the points that are scored,
the petty points.
Yeah, just by the Lions, maybe a couple by the Colts, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, last week I said the show wasn't over, and I surprised you. Well, at least you, J Walsh, with Grey Cup talk. Congratulations to the Argonauts for winning the Grey Cup. Just an absolute demolition in the fourth quarter of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Nothing makes me happier. Guess what, guys? Show's not over. We are talking Vanier Cup. It's the U Sports finale as Laval Rouge de Haut face off against Wilfrid Laurier, the Golden Hawks, in the Vanier Cup this weekend. Of course, the College Football National Championship in Canada. I'm not expecting actual discussion on this. I just figured I'd throw it in. It's this weekend. I believe it's like a 2 p.m. kickoff on the CBC. Check your local listings. But that's happening at the same time that UConn will be in progress of dismantling the JMA Wireless Dome. So you can truly choose which game you would rather watch. So unless anybody has anything else, we are going to wrap it up for this week. I'll open the floor one more time. Anybody got anything else?
Just want to add that going back to that Grey Cup discussion last week, we did learn that my curse can in fact apply to CFL teams, considering I very much locked in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers going into that game, and it did not go well for them. So my lock of the week curse does apparently apply to CFL as well. So I'll have to continue to test the boundaries of that curse. So.
Well, J Walsh, good news for you. Next week, as you heard Matt mention, we are recording a day early. So most likely we'll get some NFL, at least Thanksgiving talk in there, because, it kind of feels like we have to. Who doesn't want to talk about Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush?
You have to bet on Thanksgiving football. We must give our Thanksgiving parlays.
Yeah, exactly. So we will definitely have that discussion in there next week. Obviously, it's the last week of the regular season. It is going to be... One
more thing real quick. Matt, I'm going to officially screw you over here. I'm making the Indianapolis Colts my lock of the week this week.
Can you make it Colts money line too, please?
Colts money line, lock of the week.
Got it. All right. I'm going to place it. J Walsh just spoke it into existence.
Yeah, you know how my lock of the weeks go.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the week. Thank you so much for watching. You've just listened to a outstanding episode, I think, of football talk. So for J Walsh, for Matt, thank you. To all of you that watch, we will see you again here back next week for Rivalry Week edition in the final week of the regular season here on the Merrifield Sportsbook Show.